Students, today you're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil. We're going to do a project that first semester got to do, and we didn't just because we were on a pressure deadline to get some other projects done, but now that we have the time, we're going to go back and revisit it. So today we're going to be actually looking at our hands. As my 7th and 8th graders know, you know that your hands, you can see the golden ratio in it, that it connects you to all things living. Those are the Fibonacci sequence of numbers that your hand is growing at, that your arm is growing at. But we're gonna look at hands. Hands are very important. There's a lot of people using their hands right now to help others. And I want you to understand how powerful and cool your hand is. These opposable thumbs have allowed us to do things that many other species on planet Earth haven't been able to do. We can hold things, we can use tools, we can make things, we can shoot basketballs. There's all sorts of things that our hands do every single day, and they're very important. And every single person's hands are uniquely different. So we're gonna be focusing on hands this week. I want you to understand how important these are. In acting and speaking, you can use your hands. You can use your hands to pick up things, to feed you, to get you liquids. You can use hands to squeeze out paint tube, get toothpaste. There's so many things that your hands do every single day. And now that we're in a situation, a global crisis, where we need people to help with their hands, and you can help with your hands. By washing your hands every day for at least 20 to 30 seconds with hot water. So students, the first thing I would ask you to do is take your hand that you don't write with, the hand that you don't draw with, and put it on the piece of paper. You might have done this exercise when you were in elementary school to make turkeys, to show you're here. But what I want you to do is trace your hand. So I'm just gonna do mine. Now, I want you to pause the video here and trace your hand, just like I did. All right, now we're gonna leave and open up our hand and reveal our work. And what I can notice here is on mine, because I traced it a certain way, I have very thin fingers and I have very rounded fingertips. My wrist isn't actually this small. If you look at my wrist, it's about this big, and that is quite a big difference between the two. So this isn't really accurate. A lot of people trace this way, and it gets them sort of inaccurate results. What I want to do, this is our first attempt, I want to try again. So I'm just going to turn this piece of paper over to the other side, and I'm going to trace again, but this time I want you to think of the pencil as being a nozzle for a 3D printer. That means that it goes up and down and side to side and back and forth. But this nozzle isn't bending any angles. It's always straight up and down. And this will get us a more accurate trace. So I'm going to hold the pencil up a little bit higher. I'm going to put my hand down again, and then I'm not bending the pencil like I did before, but I'm going to only have it straight up and down. And then I am just going to go around and think of my arm as a 3D printer going on the X and Y axis and keeping that pencil straight up and down. And this will get me a more accurate tracing of my hand. Now, you can see that that is so much better. This is my second, and this is my first. You can see the difference there, right? Hopefully you can see the difference there. So this is the starting point of our thing. And if you ever need to trace anything, just remember that this is the nozzle of a 3D printer, and it needs to be straight up and down. It doesn't move, but the arm of the 3D printer moves it on the X and the Y axis, and then the Z axis up and down. Now what we need to do is look at our hand and see it. I'm going to see where the wrinkles are for the knuckles. I want to see where these knuckles lie. I want to look for anything like, here's where my cat scratched me. I got 2 scars there now. Here's another scar. I'm just going to add all of these details in. I'm going to look at our fingertips. a lot of students, when they make their fingertips, they'll do a circle, and that's not how your fingertips look. Your fingertips are more of a U, and then a sort of a squarer look, depending on your nails. This looks more outer worldly, alienish, but most people's fingernails look like this. There are some people who have more rounded fingernails, but you're gonna look at your fingernails and make that work come to life. So you can even look at your hand and be like, okay, there's a knuckle there, 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 knuckle there, a knuckle over here, here's a knuckle, here's a knuckle, there's a knuckle, there's a knuckle, there's a knuckle, and that's going to give you the places of where these things line up. And then what you want to do is be like, okay, my nail ends there, my nail ends there, my nail ends there, my nail ends about there, my nail ends about there, and then you got sort of a roadmap of what it's going to look like. Now it's just a time of drawing what you see. So you can start wherever you want. I'm just going to start on my pinky, and I see some skin over here. You see that skin? My nail isn't, if I go over here, my nail isn't like that. There's always some skin around there. Even on the top, there's some skin. So, unless I have like acrylic nails. So I'm just gonna go through, and I'm just sketching this out. I'm gonna look at this. Maybe I'm just gonna go through all my nails real quick. So it has sort of like a point on it. And each of your fingers are gonna look different. And not everybody's fingers in every class are gonna look the same. Some people have painted nails. Some people have shorter nails. Some people bite their nails. So I got the fingernails in. Now, I'm gonna go and do some knuckles. And I'm just gonna look. There's some lines, so like I have one line here. This is just about really observing. Observe what's really there. Don't fall in the artist trap of drawing what you think, but constantly look at your hand. It's attached to your body, and for this project, it's what you're using, so please look at it. Look at what is actually there while you're drawing. Try to get all the little details. Look for all the little wrinkles, look for the muscles underneath the skin, look for the veins, and add those things in. It will only make your drawing look more realistic. So I'm adding knuckles in there, I'm adding the webbing. If you spread your hand apart, you can see there's sort of webbing in there. If you add that webbing into your hand, which helps you swim, it'll help make your drawing look more realistic. Hand drawings without that webbing looks a little bit more cartoonish. Right now I'm adding the scars on my hands, trying to make it look originally to me what they look like. I'm putting in the knuckles. Now I'm going to start drawing in the highlights and the shadow areas, just penciling those in so I know where I want to add value, so it really makes my hand look three-dimensional. I'm going to use hatching at first, and I'm going to use a curved line so it looks more 3D or realistic. So as I hatch, I'm just curving those lines to make it go through. When I get to about my wrist, I realize that I need that area darker by looking at my hand. And so I need to crosshatch, just make those lines a little bit darker, and that's going to make it look more realistic. I'm also curving those crosshatch lines, so it gives another dimension of motion or movement to create that form. So going through, finding all the dark spots that I can add highlights. You can use any type of value for this. You can use stippling, you can use hatching, cross-hatching, you can even use smudging. You can use them all together depending on how you want to make your art come to life. So here I am, just adding the details, looking for value, looking at my hand, looking at the paper, what can I do? Cross-hatching, smudging, stippling, which one's going to work best for this? And I'm just adding that in, trying to make it look as realistic as possible. So here I am smudging it. Something to think about is you have an eraser there. So you can put down a dark value and erase, and it'll make a bright spot in there. You can also use it around the edges of your fingers. So if you blend off of the page a little bit, you can erase it and clean it up. That's up to you. So you can see when I go through with my eraser, I'm just cleaning things up, going around the edge to make it look like it's a little bit more three-dimensional. Something I was noticing here is that my other hand, my drawing hand, was smudging some of my drawing. So a way to protect the drawing is just put a piece of paper underneath my hand and adjust it while I draw and just work on one little section at a time. Some of you might not like to smudge with your fingers, so what you can do is get a piece of toilet paper, a Kleenex, or a paper towel and use that to smudge with instead. It works just as well and just as fine. Just remember to look at your hand, constantly look back and forth, get the details in there, make it look as realistic as you can. And with this drawing, as much effort and time you put in, it will really show and it will really look realistic depending on how much time and effort you put into this work. So students, I'd like you to spend some time this week working on this hand, about 30 minutes a day. Try to make it as realistic as possible. Do not fall in the trap of drawing what you think is there. Rather, draw what is actually there. Look at your hand, see it, and draw what is there. You can use color if you like. Color pencils work really well to get a real good look. You could use markers. It makes it look a little less realistic. Crayons work really well for this. If you want to just use value, you have those notes. They're in the classwork under all the answers on our Google Classroom. So if you want to look at what value is, you can use any of those. So take some time. I want to see what your hands look like. Do your best job. Make them as realistic as possible. See them, look at them, find all the cool things about your hands that make your hands your hands. And I can't wait to see what you make this week. Also, check Google Classroom every day around 10 and see if there's a video or a song, and have a great time working on this. Remember to contact me on Jupiter if you have any questions. I'm looking forward to seeing your best art.